I'm going to hit the record button. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to talk about various topics, okay? And I want to live stream it because I like to live stream. I hadn't done this in a long time. This is probably really the first time I've actually recorded anything of this nature specifically for the Rumble. This live stream here is only going to be on the Rumble. If you are catching this over on the YouTubes, you're catching a clip. I'm going to record the segments, clip them, and then re-upload them on Rumble and on YouTube. If you want to catch the clips and not watch the whole thing, that is fine. That's how we're going to do things. But if you want to catch the actual full thing, and it's whatever glory and all that other stuff, you got to come over to Rumble for that. Links are always in the description down below. But today we are talking about the Completionist, the fraud, possible fraud, the day before an E3. So with all of that, go get yourself some coffee, sit back, relax, and let's get into it, shall we? But yeah, so the Completionist and charity fraud. Wow. Listen, I never would have thought such a thing. Possible charity fraud, right? And I do take umbrage with several things here. This is not going to be in defense of Gerard or anything like that, because quite frankly, in my opinion, I feel like he has committed charity fraud. So we're going to go over some things. I think Mudahar and Carl Jobs have done most of the work. So all of the work for the most part before I finally get around to talking to this and everything. So we'll be hopping around and some stuff. But yeah, so what's going on? Gerard runs a foundation called the Open Hand Foundation. It takes money yearly, and it's supposed to be donating to dementia research and things like that. And the thing that everybody really has a problem with, because he made a response, right? And he talks about receipts and all this other stuff, but then doesn't show a single receipt. Now, if you come down here, he did say he linked a bunch of stuff, but for the most part, only like a few things in here are even remotely relative to what was ever actually in the discussion to begin with and talked about. And it actually brings up more questions due to the fact that their status is a nonprofit, and the fact that beforehand it wasn't that status or something like that, public versus private charity. There we go. And it wasn't actually that status. And then there's the letter down here where they have essentially terminated their private status to go public. And then there's like this 4 or 5 year window where, you know, they have to make the necessary changes and stuff, which then he doesn't actually touch into the years that people are, you know, talking about, which are the years after they're supposed to be a public charity and stuff like that. But, you know, in his video, he doesn't really show any actual receipts. He just says some things. We have to take him for, you know, face value. And a lot of the stuff down here doesn't really do anything. It just, you know, asks more questions, because there's also a letter for a continuance of private status. However, they're filing differently, and it's a mess, right? It's just this big mess. But essentially, they held on to the money, right? The Open Hand Foundation collected over $600,000 over several years, and they've been sitting on the money, not actually doing anything with it. And the problem that people have the most with it, I saw a comment that kind of shows it. But yeah, this is the thing that I said when I heard him say, you know, I apologize for anyone who was misled, kind of deal. I was like, what? You purposely did this for this comment here. You don't potentially mislead anyone, Gerard. You deliberately deceive people, and there's a difference. So yeah, in my opinion, that's exactly what has happened. But we're gonna take a look at this real quick and springboard to where we need to go. And I seriously should just move my camera here, because for some reason I have this habit of looking here when my shit is here and my camera is there. Anyway.
Most importantly, I want to apologize to anyone who ever donated over the years who felt they were wronged or led astray by any of this. Dementia is an incredibly important cause to me and my family, and so many of you at home.
Damn it. It's not what I want to do. Anyway, so he does this a lot too in his response, where he goes back to his dead mother and all this other stuff, because that's kind of what you do when you're trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? When you're trying to I don't know, get sympathy. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to use. But anyway, that there, he's very sorry about it. And I was going to do a supercut like this, but somebody already did it. So, I'm just going to steal it from some ordinary gamer here.
Called the Open Hand Foundation that raises money for dementia research and treatment for organizations all over the world. We're soon going to be partnering up with the Alzheimer's Association, currently working with the University of San Francisco, and we're kind of one of their main funding support partners.
And listen to that. The main support partner for the University of San Francisco
for dementia research and treatment for organizations all over the world. We're soon going to be partnering up with the Alzheimer's Association, currently working with the University of San Francisco, and we're kind of one of their main funding support partners going into all of this. And then I made statements potentially implying donations to the University of San Francisco.
And this is 2020, by the way. 2020. Just keep that in mind.
And we're kind of one of their main funding support partners going into all of this. And then I made statements potentially implying donations were made when they had not yet been. All bits, all donations, all super chats, all YouTube memberships, basically anything that's tied to donating or subscribing in a financial way to us is going to charity. We're not touching any of it. It's all going for a good cause.
Except for later when he says he used it all to offset the cost of administration stuff, right? To run the event, which is fine. Charities require money to run, and that's sort of a given, and nobody really said anything about that. But when you take comments, when you sit there and say, it's not going to go to this, it's going to go to the other thing, so administration costs must be coming from somewhere else, and then later go ahead and say, well, we used it to offset our administration costs. This is where people have issues, because you're deliberately lying at this point, right?
We're gonna have a great weekend. We have a lot of games, and then I made statements potentially implying donations were made when they had not yet been. All the money goes to the Open Hand Foundation, an organization that we started in honor of my mom, and all that money goes to dementia research. We don't touch any of it. We just work with the people who do need the money, and we help them do their thing. And then I made statements potentially implying donations were made when they had not yet been. We are raising money for dementia research in honor of my late mom, trying to help folks who've been impacted by dementia, working with organizations like USF, FTD Association of America, Alzheimer's Association of America, and so many more. And then I made statements potentially implying donations were made when they had not yet been. Do our own version of that every year and kind of make it a cool celebration of games and raise money for.
Now this is 2023, by the way. This is recent. Where he was on a podcast explaining it.
Like, I wish we had a charity that we could donate to, and I was like, oh, I run my own charity called the Open Hand Foundation, and all the money that we aggregate, I started it when I was a young boy with my dad in honor of my mom who had dementia, and so we just every year we try and raise as much money as possible, and then we go work with Alzheimer's Association of America, University of San Francisco, Association for FTD, which is what my mom had, FTD. So we've worked with big and small organizations across the board, and he was like, it'd be really cool if we did a show all about raising money for people who are making huge headways in dementia research and prevention and all that stuff. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. We have the organization to do it. We just, need to come up with a theme. And so, yeah, I wouldn't say that.
Well, see, this is the problem. For years, he has said that they've been working with people. They've been giving money. They are the top contributors to a certain organization, and this is why people are talking fraud at this point. Not only did the math not math a lot, even when using a bit inflated numbers to make your costs more than what it would have been. It still didn't properly math, which, he goes into about, how the books are correct and 100% and they're great. And that maybe they are, we're just not seeing something. That's fine. But from what information we had available, the math didn't math. But this is why people say charity fraud, because when you sit there and say we are actively working with, whatever research of San Francisco, we're their top contributor of, we're the top contributor with $0, by the way. Yeah, no, this is why people throw around the idea of, wait, are you committing charity fraud? Now, the money apparently all went into the account and it just sat there, and that's fine. It's just, be honest about it, right? This is what everybody wants you to do, is just to have been honest about it. You haven't donated a cent until recently. They just recently donated like 600,000 of whatever that money was, and I guess held some back for later administration costs or something. But the fact that you held on to it while simultaneously telling everybody, the same thing.
Working with organizations like USF, FTD, currently working with the University of San Francisco, and we're kind of one of their main funding support partners.
Like, when you say things like that, okay, that is fraud. That's like textbook fraud at this point. You're sitting there telling everybody, hey, we're taking this money, we're working with these organizations, we're funding them, we're their top funder. And then it turns out you just sat on it for the past 7 or whatever years, the charity's been running. You're not doing any of that kind of shit. That's the problem. That's why people are saying fraud. And his response, of course, about that, because he's like, we're engaging in embezzlement and fraud. Nobody really said you were embezzling anything or nothing like that. We just want to know why the money is sitting there and why you haven't told anybody about it, which is what we wanted, right? We want to know where it's going and why it's just sitting there. But you keep telling everybody, every indie land, every time you do a thing, that it's going to X, Y, and Z. But none of it ever was going there.
Prove that. Furthermore, my family and I are in serious conversations with our legal teams regarding...
Oh, there's that. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about real quick? I think I mismatched some stuff.
My conversation with the accusers has considered my full side of the story. But when there is
that. But anyway, so there's a bunch of stuff in here, a bunch of jargon where he kind of gets upset about stuff because fraud, which people are looking at this and saying, yeah, this is definitely this is fraud and everything. And I don't know how else to look at it. Like, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt because I like the completionist. I was there for the first 100 games, right? I was there for the first 100 since the first one dropped and watched the completionist. I hadn't seen him in like maybe the past, 4 or so years for the most part, or not actively searched his content or anything, but occasionally I will listen to a video or whatnot at work. But, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. No, it looks like fraud. I don't know how else to put it. There's just no other way to go about doing it. But yeah, he fills this entire thing with, here's some numbers, here's what we actually took in, and what we, here's our administration costs for the entire timeline, by the way, which, I haven't done the math, and I'm waiting for somebody to do the math on that to see if it kind of accounts for everything. There is the whole, we get donations, so sometimes they don't get processed to the following year statement, which could be true, so then you'd have an excess of money one year while a shortfall in the previous year, even though, that donation came in. And then he also blames COVID at some point, which doesn't really account for anything. at all. You know, if people gave you money, it doesn't matter whether they actually appeared at the golf event or whatnot. You still took the money. That has nothing to do with COVID. Nothing whatsoever to do with COVID. And multiple times he goes into, you know, how his mom died with dementia and all this other stuff, because, you know, you got to play the small violin for that, right? To get people to, you know, be more sympathetic to you. But a lot of this, of course, has been gone over by other people, but there are a few things I do want to talk about. And it's this right here, because I hadn't seen anybody actually mention or say anything about this, right? But this is a two-part prong point.
Respondents from the IRS to prove that. Furthermore, my family and I are in serious conversations with our legal teams regarding next steps, as the allegations that have been made with complete disregard for the truth of the matter. These allegations were made by individuals who self-admittedly aren't even financial or legal professionals. These allegations are slanderous, and we believe we're done with selfish intent. They have directly jeopardized the safety. These allegations were made by individuals who self-admittedly aren't regarding next steps, as the allegations that have been made with complete disregard for the truth of the matter. Or, my family and I are in serious conversations with our legal teams regarding next steps, as the allegations that have been made with complete disregard for the truth of the matter.
Now this really ticks me off, because this is so disingenuous. The two who noticed this, or the one who noticed this, is Carl Jobs, right? And he does a lot of speedrunning content, finding, talking about hackers. What's his name from Pac-Man? I can't remember. I did a video on him a long time ago. And other things. And then you got Mudahar, who is some ordinary gamers, right? And they talked and they looked over things. And then, to do their due diligence,
steps, as the allegations that have been made with complete disregard for the truth of the matter.
To do their due diligence and to get to the truth of the matter, they contacted Gerard specifically. Like, they straight up contacted him and said, hey man, here's this thing we saw. Care to talk about it and tell us what is going on? And there is an actual call where you know, they're together and they talk about it. To sit there and say that they did this with no regard for the truth is a load of bullshit. Like, I don't know how else to put that. That is so bullshit that I can't even put a number on it. And that really ticks me off, that instead of, you know, doing the right thing and apologizing really and doing all this other stuff, he goes into this thing where, yeah, we're coming for you, by the way, because you've tarnished my name and all this other stuff, because he's pissed off at the fact that, you know, it got caught. Okay?
And
did anyone
2021 last year, 2022.
Yeah, did anyone tell you that the money was going somewhere before then? Were you being misled?
No. No one told me anything. I assumed that it was all going to a charity, and I assumed it got personally involved to move it.
Anyway, so they got on a call together. They did their due diligence here. Now, here's the other thing I want to bring up, because, you know,
I should have said something sooner, or that my conversation with the accusers was considered my full side of the story.
Again, right there. Conversations with the accusers.
These allegations were made by individuals who self-admittedly aren't even financial or legal professionals.
Let's see, where was it?
Regarding next steps, as the allegations that have been made with complete disregard for the truth of the matter. Or that my conversation with the accusers was considered my full side of the story.
How can you say that with a straight face? Like, you sit there at the end of this video, talk about how, you know, they said these things without attempting to get to the truth of the matter, when they personally talked to you. You fucking idiot. Anyway, No, but seriously, the other thing I want to talk about when it comes to the fraud comes from this conversation too, real quick.
2022.
Yeah, did anyone tell you that?
I got personally involved to move it.
All right.
Did anyone?
2021 last year, 2022.
Yeah, did anyone tell you that the money was going somewhere before then? Were you being misled?
No. No one told me anything. I assumed that it was all going to a charity, and I assumed incorrectly.
Whether or not you.
Okay, so this is the problem. In 2022, he was apparently made aware of the thing, right? In 2023, however, he's still telling the exact same story. Okay? And then previously, in 2020, he's supposed to be unaware that the money hasn't moved, but for some reason assumes they are working with the the University of San Francisco or whatnot.
Funding support partners going into all of this, and then I'm at the University of San Francisco, and we're kind of one of their main funding.
This is my question. How do you assume you're the top contributor to the University of San Francisco without actually knowing that the money has been sitting there for the entire inception of your organization? And then also simultaneously say, you weren't misled or anything. Somebody had to tell you that. Either you knew or you didn't, right? So either somebody told you, yeah, we're their top contributor, meaning that somebody in your family lied to you and misled you, or you already knew that it has never moved and you're currently committing fraud. Like, this was his out. This right here was his out, but because of that conversation where he said, he wasn't misled, he just assumed, it muddies the water so much. Like, he had an out. And if he hadn't had that call, if he decided to skip out of it, or didn't even just say that and was like, they told me things, I thought they were true, he could have had his out right there. The problem is, we don't know what is actually the truth at this point now, right? Because he sat there and said he wasn't misled, and then prior to that, definitively, multiple times stated we were working with X, Y, and Z. Also said he's the contributor to another place. Yeah. It makes no sense. Make it make sense. Anyway, that's all I got for that. I just want to talk about that for a brief moment because this is quite the thing that's going on. And so for those of you who are watching the clip, I'll see you in the next one. For those of you on the live stream, though,